how much would you be able to cut property taxes by?
Well, it's a good question. But first, let's just point out, people are being pinched across the economy in a lot of things. Because we have no income tax. We're doing fine at the state. But the local property taxes are hurting people.
275,000 Floridians are expected to flee the state next year. Miami-Dade alone is losing 67,000 residents, and entire neighborhoods are emptying out. Behind the headlines about a panicked governor lies a stark reality. Families are facing $15,000 in insurance bills, mortgage payments that double overnight, and a wave of permanent exits not seen since the last housing collapse. What forced the Sunshine State into crisis, and who gets left behind as Florida unravels? Across Florida, the numbers tell a story of sudden upheaval. Statewide projections show more than 250,000 people expected to relocate in a single year, rivaling the outflows seen during the peak of the 2008 financial crisis. Miami-Dade County is bracing for the loss of up to 67,000 residents, while Broward and Palm Beach counties together could see 50,000 people leave behind jobs, schools, and neighborhoods. In Hillsborough County, home to Tampa, another 30,000 departures are anticipated, and Orange County, anchored by Orlando, faces 25,000 more. These are not the seasonal shifts of retirees or snowbirds, but families uprooting for good, selling homes and packing moving trucks for Tennessee, the Carolinas, or Georgia. Behind these figures are young professionals abandoning hopes of building a future in Florida. Salaries that once stretched far enough for a starter home now fall short, especially in cities where housing costs have far outpaced local incomes. Investors, too, are offloading properties at steep losses, willing to take the financial hit just to escape the spiral of rising costs and falling prices. The state once known for its promise of no income tax and endless sunshine is now defined by a new reality. One where economic pressure is forcing thousands to make gut-wrenching decisions about where they can afford to live. On a quiet street in Cape Coral, a family sits at their kitchen table, bills spread out in front of them. Their home, bought in 2022 for $400,000, once felt like a dream. Now each month brings a new calculation. The mortgage alone is $2,400 at a 7% rate, hundreds more than they expected when they first moved in. Insurance premiums have doubled since Hurricane Ian, now topping $8,000 a year or nearly $700 every month. Flood coverage adds another $100 monthly. Property taxes are $3,500 a year, breaking down to almost $300 each month. The numbers pile up: $2,400 for the mortgage, $700 for insurance, $100 for flood, $300 for taxes. Before groceries, gas, or utilities, the family faces $3,500 in housing costs alone. Their combined income is $62,000, right at the city median. But the math no longer works. Savings are gone, retirement accounts drained to cover rising bills, college funds for their children sit empty. They have stopped eating out, canceled vacations, and sold a second car. Even with these sacrifices, the gap grows wider every month. The parents wonder how long they can hold on. The house that once promised stability now feels more like a trap. For families like theirs, the crisis is not abstract. It is the relentless pressure of numbers that no longer add up, and the fear that selling even at a loss may be the only way out. Insurance companies in Florida have been collapsing under the weight of repeated storms and mounting claims. Names that once anchored the state's property market, including Lighthouse Property Insurance, FedNat, St. John's Insurance, Weston Property and Casualty, Avatar Property and Casualty, and Southern Fidelity Insurance, have all vanished from homeowners' renewal letters. National brands have not fared much better. Farmers stopped writing new policies in Florida altogether. Boy withdrew, leaving longtime customers scrambling for alternatives. Allstate sent out cancellation notices to households that had paid premiums faithfully for decades. With each company exit, more homeowners have been forced into Citizens Property Insurance, the state-backed insurer of last resort. Citizens now covers over 1.3 million policies, a figure that dwarfs its original mandate. It was never designed to shoulder the primary risk for so many homes, especially in a state where a single major hurricane can cause tens of billions in damage. Premiums have spiraled upward at a pace few could have imagined. The average increase statewide reached 30% in just 1 year. In Miami-Dade, Broward, Monroe, and Collier counties, annual premiums now range from $8,000 to $15,000. For homeowners on Miami Beach, in Key Largo, or along the Fort Lauderdale shoreline, insurance alone can cost more than $15,000 a year. In Cape Coral and Fort Myers, the aftermath of Hurricane Ian sent policies from $3,500 in 2021 to $7,000 by 2023, and now past $10,000 as 2025 unfolds. In the hardest hit neighborhoods, insurance bills rival or even exceed mortgage payments. A typical homeowner might pay $2,000 a month for the mortgage and $2,200 for insurance, numbers that simply do not add up for most families. The system that once promised peace of mind has become a source of anxiety, leaving thousands one storm or one renewal away from financial ruin. A $350,000 mortgage, locked in at 3% just 3 years ago, cost a Florida family about $1,475 a month. That same loan now, with rates between 6.5% and 7.5%, demands payments of $2,300 a month or more. An increase of nearly $900 every month before a single dollar goes to insurance, taxes, or fees. For middle-income households, this single change has turned homeownership from a stretch into an impossibility. In cities like Fort Myers, Port St. Lucie, and Lakeland, the median household income ranges from $55,000 to $65,000. The math is brutal. A family earning $85,000 could once manage the old payment, but now needs $120,000 or more just to qualify for the same house. The squeeze is everywhere. Teachers, nurses, police officers, and firefighters, people who keep communities running, are being priced out of the places they serve. Incomes haven't kept up with the jump in housing costs. For many, the dream of a Florida home is slipping away, replaced by the reality of draining savings, skipping retirement contributions, and putting off any plans for the future. Some families who bought at the peak in 2022 are watching their emergency funds disappear, college savings vanish, and every paycheck stretch thin. Retirees on fixed incomes face an even starker choice: stay and watch their nest egg evaporate, or leave the state and the home they thought would be theirs for life. Mortgage statements, insurance bills, and tax notices stack up, each one a reminder that the numbers no longer work. The gap between what homes cost and what people earn has become a chasm, pushing more families to the edge and setting the stage for a flood of homes to hit the market as people search for a way out. Florida's housing market is now flooded with properties that simply are not moving. Multiple listing service data shows more than 177,000 homes for sale across the state, a number that eclipses the entire inventory of the Northeast. Active listings have surged 34% year over year, with no sign of a slowdown. In Miami-Dade County, nearly 15,000 homes are on the market. Broward reports 11,000, Palm Beach another 13,000, and Hillsborough, which includes Tampa, lists 9,000. These numbers represent an extraordinary buildup of supply, far outpacing the number of buyers willing or able to make a purchase. A statewide realtor analyst points to a market that is fundamentally out of balance. New listings are slowing, but properties already on the market are lingering for months without offers. In Naples, inventory has jumped 42%, while sales have dropped 18%. Sarasota's available homes have tripled in just 1 year, now sitting at 6,000. Tampa Bay's supply has stretched from less than 2 months to more than 5 months, with some neighborhoods seeing 7 or 8 months worth of unsold homes. Cape Coral, a city of 200,000, now has 12,000 properties on the market, one for every 16 residents. This level of oversupply has not been seen since the 2008 crash. Price cuts are now routine, and sellers are offering everything from cash incentives to furniture just to get buyers through the door. Cape Coral, once the poster child for Florida's real estate boom, now stands at the center of the bust. The city's home values have fallen further than anywhere else in the state, down 11% from their peak. For thousands of homeowners, the drop is not just a number on a chart. About 8% now owe more on their mortgages than their homes are worth, the highest rate in the country. Signs offering price reductions line the streets, but buyers are scarce. Many listings have been cut 2, 3, or even 4 times. with some sellers slashing $40,000, $60,000, even $75,000 from their original asking price, and still waiting months for a single offer. Builders, desperate to move new homes, are offering incentives that would have been unthinkable just a year ago. One major builder admits to covering closing costs, buying down mortgage rates to 4% or 5%, and throwing in $50,000 or more in upgrades, sometimes even more, to keep projects from stalling out. The math is relentless. A median household income of $62,000 in Cape Coral cannot stretch to cover a $400,000 home at a 7% rate, $8,000 in insurance, and $3,500 in taxes, let alone the $1,200 for flood coverage now required in many neighborhoods. Investors who snapped up properties during the boom are dumping them at steep losses, hoping to escape before prices fall further. For many, the promise of Florida living has turned into a daily struggle to stay afloat. July 2024, FEMA delivered a blow to Broward County homeowners. Overnight, 89,000 properties were reclassified as high risk for flooding. Entire neighborhoods in Miramar, Pembroke Pines, Hollywood, and Fort Lauderdale received official letters saying federally backed mortgages now require new flood insurance, with annual costs ranging from $1,200 to $3,000 per year, on top of already soaring homeowners' insurance premiums. For many, this meant a sudden spike in monthly bills, with no way out except to pay or risk losing their homes. Realtors reported that houses that once sold in days now sat for months, untouched even after steep price cuts. Sales activity slowed, and the pressure to discount grew. Price reductions that started at $10,000 or $20,000 quickly doubled or tripled as buyers factored in the new insurance burden. A FEMA spokesperson stated these updates were necessary to reflect the true risk posed by rising sea levels and more frequent storms. But for families caught in the new flood zones, the change felt less like a safeguard and more like a penalty. The shock in Broward is only the beginning. FEMA has already announced upcoming remaps for Miami-Dade, Palm Beach, Pinellas, Hillsborough, Lee, and Collier counties over the next 2 years. Hundreds of thousands more homes stand to be reclassified, bringing new costs and new uncertainty to communities already stretched thin by the housing crisis. Governor Ron DeSantis stood before cameras in Naples, flanked by state lawmakers, and signed Senate Bill 102, the Live Local Act, touting a record $711 million investment in affordable housing. The press release said the affordable housing package signed by Governor DeSantis will enable hardworking Floridians to put down roots in the communities they serve. But as the crisis deepened, the policy response struggled to keep pace. Legislative records show the governor's budget proposed $548 million for housing trust funds. Yet the most urgent fixes, like addressing citizens' property insurance's swelling exposure, never reached the floor. Committee minutes from the 2025 session detail hours of debate. No emergency funding bills advanced, and attempts at sweeping citizens' reform stalled in subcommittee without a vote. Meanwhile, actuarial statements quietly circulated among state officials, highlighting citizens' property insurance's $4.18 billion surplus, but warning of vulnerability if another major hurricane struck. With no federal backstop and state emergency funds stretched thin, the gap between official assurances and the reality on the ground only widened. Donor calls from Naples and Miami Beach pressed for action, but legislative gridlock left the market adrift and homeowners searching for answers. Wall Street's verdict on Florida's housing crisis came swiftly and without sentiment. Major institutional landlords, once responsible for as much as a quarter of all home purchases in the state, have nearly vanished from the market. By mid-2025, the share of homes bought by institutional investors plunged below 6%, according to transaction data from the Florida MLS. Firms like Invitation Homes, American Homes for Rent, and Progress Residential began liquidating their portfolios, offloading thousands of properties at steep losses. In Tampa and Orlando alone, bulk sales stripped hundreds of rental homes from company balance sheets, often at prices that undercut local sellers. The retreat is not limited to Florida. Across the Sun Belt, the same pattern is unfolding. Austin's housing inventory climbed 60% in a year. While Dallas-Fort Worth saw listings surge by 42%, Phoenix's available homes doubled, and some neighborhoods in San Antonio posted price drops of 6% or more. In Florida's vacation hotspots, Airbnb occupancy rates crashed. Kissimmee, Davenport, and Claremont fell from 75% to under 50%. Beach town rentals face a flood of new rules and empty calendars. As institutional money flees and short-term rentals sit vacant, the financial shockwaves ripple far beyond Florida's borders, signaling a market in open distress. Every crisis brings a crossroads. For homeowners facing impossible bills, there are concrete steps to demand from leaders and agencies. First, push for full transparency from Citizens Property Insurance, including public actuarial reports, clear solvency projections, and open hearings on hurricane risk. Insist that state lawmakers appropriate emergency reserves, not just for disaster recovery, but to stabilize insurance costs and to prevent a wave of forced sales. At the county level, communities can appeal FEMA flood map changes, challenge property reclassifications, and request independent reviews. Hotlines and online forms are available through the Office of the Florida Chief Financial Officer. For those trapped by insurance spikes or mortgage resets, state housing counselors can guide appeals, connect families to legal aid, and help negotiate with lenders. Advocates are calling for an expansion of the Live Local Act, with targeted funds for the hardest hit regions and for essential professions. The checklist is clear. Demand accountability and demand resources. Demand that the cost of living crisis be met with action, not promises. The future of Florida's communities depends on it. Tonight, Florida's housing crisis exposes a hard truth. When the cost of shelter outpaces wages and insurance collapses, stability vanishes for millions. The nation's fastest growing state now faces the nation's harshest reckoning. What happens here next could shape housing policy and migration far beyond Florida. For families on the edge, the clock is still ticking. Share your perspective below.